Today, we're comparing the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card with the Chase Sapphire Reserve to see which one's a better fit for your situation and spending. We'll look at 3 factors including multipliers, annual fees and credits, and also superpowers. Even though we are comparing them, there is an argument to have both, especially if you have enough spend in the right categories. With that said, big favor before we dive into everything is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Let's start with the multipliers. The Chase Sapphire Preferred Card covers a lot of everyday categories. You get 3x points on dining, 3x points on gas stations and EV charging, and also online groceries, but not counting Target, Walmart, and wholesale clubs. One that's nice to have, but probably less impactful, is 3x on top streaming services. Lots of options here, including Apple Music, Disney+, Netflix, Spotify, and also YouTube Premium. For the travel categories, it depends on how you book it. For example, you get 5x points on Chase Travel. More on this one in a second. You also get 3x points on vacation home rentals at top brands. Some examples including Airbnb, Vrbo, and HomeAway. Beyond this, you also get 2x on all other travel. This is anything that codes as travel, so super broad. That includes flights and hotels booked directly, cruises and online travel agents, various buses and subways, and even parking lots and highways can count. If you're running a Chase setup and you have a lot of miscellaneous travel, then this can earn you a ton of points. The Chase Sapphire Reserve, for better or worse, takes a very different approach. You get 8x points on Chase Travel, which includes the edit by Chase Travel. On the platform, you have flights and hotels, rental cars, cruises, and also activities and tours. Yeah, this is any travel that you book through their portal. And reminder that for hotels, they do have a price match guarantee. There are rules here, so claims have to be within 24 hours, and you do need to provide a screenshot. And the big one that people miss is that it has to be the same room type with the same cancellation and refund policies. One thing I've noticed is that Chase tends to have refundable rates. For some hotels, the delta between the refundable and non-refundable rates could be more than 10%, let's say $280 compared to $318. At the same time, hotels directly usually don't offer non-refundable rates unless it's at least 2 to 4 weeks out, so there's not really any last-minute tactics. So yeah, even though there is a catch, it feels pretty reasonable and fair. If you don't want to book stuff through Chase Travel, then you can also book directly, and this has pretty compelling multipliers. You're looking at 4x points on hotels and flights that are booked directly. With this card, like the last one, you get 3x points on dining and also 1x on all other purchases. As you can tell, there is a bit of overlap, and you want to focus on the key differences. Comparing the two, the Chase Sapphire Reserve is a heavy hitter for Chase Travel, but also flights and hotels booked directly, but otherwise that's it. On the other hand, the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card is better for everyday purchases like gas and EV charging, online groceries, and also streaming. It's also arguably better for travel broadly if you do vacation home rentals like Airbnb or you have a lot of miscellaneous travel like tolls. Both cards also have limited time partner multipliers. For example, both cards give you 5x on Lyft rides, and for Peloton, it's 5x on one of them and 10x on the other, but there are terms and conditions. If this is a bit confusing and you want to run the numbers, we do have a calculator where you can put your spend to compare both cards. Same thing with how you value different credits. I'll link it down below, but it should also pop up if you search CSP versus CSR, worth it, AskSebby. If you've been around for a while, it's actually pretty interesting because historically they were pretty comparable. At this point though, I feel like they have deviated quite a bit in terms of what they are, to the point that they're less competition and more complementary. One is more pure travel, while the other one has some travel, but feels more like an everyday card and arguably even a catch-all. Okay, so with all of that said, intro bonuses do change the equation. You can get both intro bonuses, and that's arguably the optimal strategy. Both cards now have the same language, that the new card member bonus may not be available to you if you previously held this card or received a new card member bonus for this card. Both cards have pretty solid offers. With the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, you're looking at 75,000 bonus points after you spend 5,000 on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. Chase Sapphire Reserve is a little bit higher. You're looking at 100k bonus points after you spend 6,000 on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. The value of the points depends on how you want to use them. For cash back, you get 1 cent per point for both, but for points boost, it does vary. On one side, you're getting 1 to 1.5, and on the other side, 1 to 2.5. For transfer partners, which is how I use the points, I'd target 2 cents per point for both. There are differences for transfers, especially with Hyatt, but we'll get into that. For the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, you're looking at 750 in value, all the way up to 2,250, and I'd probably argue 1,500 as a fair number. But yeah, lots of options in the middle depending on what you want to redeem for. For the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you're looking at a floor of 1,000 and then all the way up to 3,000, and I'd argue about 2,000 as my target. If you do use points boost though with the right hotels, it might be up to 2,500 with very little effort. For return on spend, so value based off the spend, you're looking at 15%, all the way up to 45% for the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, and for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, 16.7%, all the way up to about 50%. All of that is ignoring limited time offers. For example, right now for the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, you're going to get 100k points for 5k spend for the first 3 months. That means that the baseline values for both cards is the same, middle ones do change, and for transfer partners, I'd argue about the same as well. The return on spend looks a bit better since it's lower spend for the same bonus, so 20% all the way up to 60% return on spend for the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card. Well worth considering if you are eligible. On a side note, if you are someone that wants to learn about cards and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that they make sense for you, but otherwise it's a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. If you're looking at the cards on a long-term time horizon, the annual fees and credits start to matter a lot more. For the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, there is a $95 annual fee, but you also get up to $100 as a Chase Travel Hotel credit. You get this every account anniversary year, and it's for hotels booked through Chase Travel. That means that if you travel once a year, it's pretty much a break-even card. One that's nice to have, but you might already have it, is up to $120 every 4 years as a reimbursement for global entry, TSA PreCheck, or Nexus application fees. One partner one that's hit or miss is a complimentary Dash Pass membership, and also $10 promo each month, so up to $120 per year. The Chase Sapphire Reserve is pretty intimidating with a $7.95 annual fee, but you do get a bunch of credits. The easiest one to use is up to $300 as an annual travel credit. That's anything that codes as travel. You also get up to $250 for each prepaid booking with the edit, and it's up to $500 annually, and there is a 2-night minimum per booking. The 2-night minimum is a little bit annoying, but it depends on how you travel. For 2026, you'll also get up to $250 in statement credits on prepaid Chase Travel hotel bookings with IHG Hotels and Resorts, Montage, Pendry, Omni, Virgin, Minor, and Pan Pacific. This one also has a 2-night minimum requirement. Outside of travel, they have a lot of everyday ones. For example, up to $150 for each half of the year, so up to $300 total for dining at restaurants that are part of the Sapphire exclusive table program. This one depends on where you live and how you eat, but for Bay Area, there's 33. This includes iconic picks like Gary Danko, where you're looking at $130 to $185 per person. At the same time, there are a bunch of good mid-level date night options like House of Prime Rib, Statebird and Progress, or Rich Table and Angler. For a lot of the mid-level ones, you're looking at $25 to $40 per entree. On the bottom with more affordable options, you have things like Little Shucker, where items might be $10 to $20. If you're not in a major city or you don't eat out, then it definitely can be frustrating. Another good one that's pretty easy is up to $150 in statement credits for each half of the year, so up to $300 total for StubHub and Viagogo purchases. This is through December 31st, 2027, and activation is required. The last one I really like and value is up to $10 a month for Lyft, and it's up to $120 annually. This is for rides, and it's through September 30th, 2027. These are the ones I value, but there are other perks as well. For example, a complimentary subscription to Apple TV and Apple Music, that's arguably $288 in value, and you have to activate by June 22nd, 2027. If you have a Peloton or you do spin, then up to $10 a month in statement credits for eligible Peloton membership through December 31st, 2027. One people love that I don't really use enough is DoorDash, and here you do get a complimentary Dash Pass membership and up to $25 each month for DoorDash. It is broken down into $5 monthly promo for restaurants and then 2 $10 promos for groceries, retail, and more, so a little bit annoying there. Your mileage may vary whether it's worth carrying. You also get up to $120 every 4 years as a reimbursement for application fees for global entry, TSA PreCheck, or Nexus. Even though there is a lot going on, your goal isn't to use every single credit, it's to use enough. I'd argue that you're in a great spot if you can break even from the card. So given all the credits, can you get $7.95 in value or close to that number? If you travel, the up to $300, up to $500, up to $250 is $1,050 in value, so that's already above the annual fee. If you're someone that does a lot of date nights, the up to $300 travel credit, up to $300 for Sapphire Dining, and up to $300 for StubHub and Viagogo, and up to $120 for Lyft to get there and back is pretty easy. That's $1,020 in value. If you're someone that likes to go to Vegas, the up to $300 travel credit, up to $500 for the edit stays, up to $300 for StubHub and Viagogo, and then up to $120 for Lyft is pretty easy. That's almost $1,300 in value. The thing too is that even if you discount some of them by, let's say, 50%, the math can still work out. In this case, we have the travel credit, the edit stays, Sapphire Dining, StubHub, Viagogo, and Lyft at 50% of the value. The main idea is that both cards can work. It just depends on if you can use the credits. Okay, so the final section is Superpowers, and here it gets interesting. I'd break it down into 6 different options: high spend, hotel elite status, lounge access, travel protections, primary CDW, and also transfer partners. For the first one, if you are a higher spender, it very much depends on how your spend breaks down. If it's everyday stuff, then the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card might make more sense since you're earning more points. On the other hand, if it's travel, Chase Sapphire Reserve makes more sense given the higher multipliers. If it's something that they both share like dining or everything else, then the Chase Sapphire Reserve might have the edge. The main reason being that if you spend $75K in the calendar year, then you unlock additional statuses and credits. One of the benefits being Hyatt Explorer status. Normally to get this, you're looking at 30 nights or 50 base points earned per year. In terms of benefits, you're getting 20% bonus points and also room upgrades, but not counting suites or rooms with club lounge access. Think higher floors, maybe corner rooms, and better views. You also get 2 p.m. late checkout and early access to award night inventory. Not bad at all, but nothing too crazy, so I'd set your expectations. Another status you get is IHG1 Rewards Diamond Elite status. This one normally requires 70 nights or 120K qualified points per year. You do earn a lot more points, so 100% bonus points. You also get Hertz President Circle and reward night discounts. You're on the top of the list for upgrades, and for welcome amenity, you have free breakfast as an option, and you also have early check-in. For Southwest, you get 500 in Chase travel credit for Southwest and also A-list status. You can also choose extra legroom seats 48 hours out. You're going to be in boarding group 1, you get 1 checked bag free, 25% more points, and same-day standby, which can be super useful. Also priority lanes for check-in and airport security checkpoints. Not bad at all, but just depends on if you already have those perks from Southwest cards. Last one here is $250 for credits for the shops at Chase. Options on the platform include ice cream makers, suitcases, and ideally other things that are close to retail or the same as retail. For example, Apple Watch or Sony gaming headset. Another good one is Garmin, which is pretty good value. AirPods tend to be a good choice since they're the same price as Apple. And mind you, this is definitely not for everyone, but it just depends on your spending. If you have a lot of organic spend, you might already hit it in 6 months, and same thing if you're fat fire and you just travel a ton. For a lot of people, more likely is that you have to travel for work and they let you use your own card and you get reimbursed after. It also depends on the categories. If most of your spend is gas and Airbnbs, I'd rather take the 3x points on the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card over the 1x here and the chance of hitting 75K. The 75K is a nice to have. I don't think most people should be going for it. For example, I don't think I'm hitting it based off my current pace for the mid-year, unless you really value the credits or the perks, which I think are just okay and not even that game-changing. 99% of the time, you're better off focusing on multipliers. Speaking of hotel elite status, with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you get 2 statuses. You get IHG1 Rewards Platinum Elite status through December 31st, 2027, and activation is required. Normally, this is 40 nights or 60K qualified points, and you get 60% bonus points, Hertz 5-star status, reward night discounts. Also, you are eligible for upgrades, but you are behind Diamond Elite, and for welcome amenity, you have points or drinks and snack as a choice. I've had this status for a while from a card. It's great in Europe and Asia, but pretty much a non-factor in the US. The other one is a limited time Marriott Bonvoy Gold Elite status, and you have to register between July 1st and September 30th, 2026. If you end up doing 3 paid nights booked through Marriott during the 3 months, then the status is going to be extended through February 2028. You normally get Gold Elite status after 25 nights per year. You get 25% bonus points and 2 p.m. late checkout if available. You also get a guaranteed welcome gift, and in this case, it's just points, and also room upgrades, generally higher floors, maybe better views. Lounge access is a very one-sided battleground. The Chase Sapphire Preferred Card is pretty much not in the race. On the other hand, the Chase Sapphire Reserve has its own lounge network and its own Sapphire lounges. This includes Boston, Las Vegas, New York JFK, New York LaGuardia, Philly, Phoenix, San Diego, and Dallas and Los Angeles are coming soon. They also do have a partner lounge in IAD Dulles with Etihad. The Chase Sapphire Reserve gives you plus 2 guests access to these lounges for free. This is a stark contrast with their competitors. The disadvantage of this policy is that it might be harder to get into the lounges compared to the competitors. Once you do get in though, the lounge experience is pretty solid. It's just getting in that's tough. With the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you also get a priority pass membership that gets you plus 2 guests access to their lounges. Set your expectations in the US, think of it as free coffee, maybe a free cocktail. Abroad though, especially Asia, they can get a lot better. There are still going to be people, so if you don't want people, if you want an empty lounge, then maybe fly first class. A lot of the international ones do have better food and drink, so for example, bars with bartenders making drinks. Also for food, more substantial food that matches with the city and the cuisine. Also noodle bars, I've had surprisingly good laksa as well as wonton mein at airport lounges. With the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you also get access to select Air Canada lounges when you're flying Star Alliance. For example, this is the one in SFO. They can be hit or miss, but good to have another option in your pocket, especially if other lounges might be full. Also a reminder that Star Alliance is pretty big and is about 1/3 of major airlines. Outside of SFO, other solid ones include Los Angeles, London, and Frankfurt. If you're an infrequent traveler, airport lounge access can be very hit or miss, and I'd probably set your expectations and discount it. If you do travel a lot, let's say every 2 weeks or every month or so, you do want a lot of options in your tool belt just to de-risk. Especially if you break even from credits, or if you get value above the annual fee, it just makes a lot of sense. Having more options means you have a place to work and protein max before your flight, which probably saves you $20 or $30 from eating out when you get home. Travel protections are one area where both cards are genuinely strong. Both cards have trip cancellation and interruption insurance, and it's up to $10K per covered traveler and up to $20K per trip. Same thing with baggage delay insurance, up to $100 per day and up to 5 days. Note that the delay does have to be more than 6 hours. Both cards also have lost luggage reimbursement that's up to $3,000 per covered traveler. Same thing now with emergency evacuation and transportation that's up to $100,000. The Chase Sapphire Reserve does have an edge for trip delay. For the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, it only happens when it's more than 12 hours or it's overnight, and it's up to $500 per covered traveler. For the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it triggers when it's more than 6 hours. The 6-hour difference doesn't sound like a lot, but can make a huge difference when you're stuck at the airport. Another difference is roadside assistant dispatch. For the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, it is billed to the card, while for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you get up to 50 per incident and 4 times per year. One perk that both cards are strong in is primary CDW, also known as auto rental coverage. This is super useful if you rent cars, especially when you travel. This means that you can decline their coverage if you charge it to the card. Both cards have primary CDW, and consider that a lot of other mid-level cards only offer secondary coverage. The benefit of primary is that it hits the card first, and secondary means that it's secondary to your own insurance, so it just depends on how you view things. Also a reminder that you still need liability insurance. We're just talking about CDW here. With that said, there are some differences in the policies. For the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card, it's up to $60K for theft and collision damage, and it's most vehicles with an MSRP of $125K or below. For the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it's up to $75K, and it's most rental cars in the US and abroad. Note that there is an exception for New York residents, where it's primary unless you have personal automobile insurance, where it would then be excess. The last superpower is transfer partners. Even though both cards unlock transfers to Chase's airline and hotel partners, the rates do differ for one of them. When you are transferring from the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card to World of Hyatt, it transfers at a 4-to-3 rate. That means that 1,000 Chase points would only be 750 World of Hyatt points. On the other hand, for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it's 1-to-1, so 1,000 Chase is 1,000 Hyatt. Hyatt is probably the best hotel transfer program, and even with the negative changes, it's still pretty good. Some of my favorite trips have been with Hyatt, whether it's skiing in Japan, or enjoying Chicago in the summertime and checking out the Pokemon exhibit. For airline partners, it's 1-to-1, so it's the same. 1,000 Chase is 1,000 airline points or miles. Current partners include Aer Lingus, Air Canada Aeroplan, Air France KLM Flying Blue, British Airways, Iberia, JetBlue, Singapore, Southwest, United, and Virgin Atlantic. Yeah, tons of good use cases, including Flying Blue to book Air France business class, or Virgin Atlantic Flying Club to book ANA business or first, especially if you can land their new products. Other useful ones are Singapore, United, and Aeroplan, which can have pretty good use cases as well. I talked a lot about Hyatt, but the other hotel programs are 1-to-1. That includes IHG One Rewards, Marriott Bonvoy, and Wyndham Rewards. I would treat those more as top-offs since they can be pretty hit or miss, and in my experience, more misses. With all of that said, reminder that your points are transferable within most of the Chase core family of cards, so if you do have both cards, then you can move from the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card to the Chase Sapphire Reserve. In that case, transferring to Hyatt would then be 1-to-1. Another strategy is if you have a player too. So let's say you have the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card and you're paying for everyday expenses, and maybe they're a consultant and they have to travel for work, so for them, Chase Sapphire Reserve makes more sense anyways. In that case, you earn the points, you transfer it to them for the Chase Sapphire Reserve to then transfer to Hyatt. As long as it's the same household, it's usually fine. Okay, so with all of that said, who should get what? If you travel a lot, the Chase Sapphire Reserve is hard to beat. Whether that's lounge access with Sapphire lounges, better transfer rates for Hyatt, and also just a very strong base earn rate for flights and hotels. It just does a lot very well. You do need to get value from the credits, ideally close to break even, but if you do, then you're in a great spot. If not, then it depends on your spend and whether you can spend enough. On the other hand, if you spend a lot at home and you aren't traveling a crazy amount, then the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card might actually be the better fit given the multipliers. Option 3 is if you're someone that spends a good chunk at home and you travel a lot. In that case, there's an argument to have both cards, whether that's just by yourself or with a player too. Also, if you are looking at the long term, you probably want to get both cards anyways, whether it's one after the other or both at the same time. But yeah, curious where you lean on the cards, or maybe it's both. Again, if you want to run the numbers, Google CSP versus CSR, worth it, AskSebby. Again, if you want to learn about cards, or whether these ones or pretty much any other cards out there, and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and down below in the description box. And if you're curious, all legal affiliate disclosures can also be found below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a handshake or boxing glove emoji, depending on how you feel, in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, which multipliers do you care about? Number 2, of all the superpowers, which ones are actually useful for you and which ones do you ignore? And number 3, which one do you think's better, or maybe it's both? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.